We are talking to Leo Barros from TruckNews about truck driver training, truck schools, how to pick a trucking company. That's this week on the Trucking Risk and Insurance Podcast. Stay tuned. Leo gives his personal advice on how to pick a school and your future employer. That's next on the Trucking Risk and Insurance Podcast. Let's go.
Welcome to the Trucking Risk and Insurance Podcast.
Leo, welcome to the Trucking Risk and Insurance Podcast. Can you start off by telling us a little bit about yourself? And I'm curious, I know you were a truck driver at one point. Now you're in media. How does that all link together? So who's your employer, first of all?
Hi, my name is Leo Barros. I'm the associate editor of TruckNews.com. My employer is Newcom Media. So I've been a journalist for about 25 years. I worked in the print media for a long time. I worked in editing. I wrote a bit on the side. And then one fine day I said, let's take a chance and drive a truck. So I got my CDL. I drove long haul. And then as I was doing that, I found this job popped up and you guys took me in. So now I've been working here ever since. It's been 3.5 years.
Oh, cool. That's it. I thought you were with Truck News a lot longer.
No.
Oh, okay. Well,
there you go.
Welcome. I'm curious because we're going to talk about truck driver training and everything. What did your training work out? What are your memories from that? If it's only, 4 years ago then?
Yeah, it's pretty fresh. I got into a finishing program with one of the major carriers here in Canada, and I got some fantastic training. They had a very good finishing program. So I trained for almost 9 weeks with them. We did in-yard training. We did city training. The pre-trip is something that I'll never forget. It was so thorough that after this day, I can do a pre-trip and it will be a real good pre-trip. They were really good to me. A good carrier, very safe carrier. The training was awesome. So it was in-yard, city driving, and then you move on to the highway with a trainer for a few weeks, and they grade you as you go along. And then finally, they hand you the keys to a trucker and say, off you go. But they keep you within about 500 miles from the base. So you would do 2-3 day trips and back and forth. So it was pretty good. So I got to drive a lot in outside. So it was mostly into the US kind of work.
Only 500-mile trips, which is about 10 hours out.
Well, 500-mile to 600-mile radius area. So you would be going as far down south as maybe Kentucky. You'd be going to Chicago. You could be sent up into Northern Ontario. You'd be going to, I've been up to Thunder Bay, been to almost, I think, Quebec City. And this was all during the winter. So I got a good taste of it.
Yes.
Highway 17 in the wintertime is not for the faint of heart.
No.
Yeah, Highway 17. I used to drive it in a car, and in the winter I would avoid it. I had customers up in the Sioux, so I would go to Michigan to get to Sault Ste. Marie.
Yeah.
Because at night you'd have truck flashing past you with a couple of inches to spare between the mirrors, right? That close. There is no shoulder on the sides for miles.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, so it gave me a good taste of what things were. And yeah.
Yeah, no. Cool. It's really, I think, unique that a media person, a writer, has their tractor trailer license and actually went through a truck driving school, went through a mentorship program, and that gives you a very unique perspective, I believe, on our industry. What do you think about the MELT program?
So personally, I think it helps you drive a truck, but it doesn't train you enough to be a proper truck driver. You need a finishing program. You need you need those extra hours where somebody is helping you out, saying you should be doing this, you should not be doing that. And my point is, if you're going to be hauling 80,000 pounds or more, 72 feet long down a highway, you need to be trained a lot more from that.
And who do you think should have the responsibility? Should it be, MELT is government regulated, so should the government regulate more training? Or is the current system now where a truck driving school produces a product, basically, that's what you are, and then the trucking companies finish you?
So I would like to go into something that I wrote a story about a couple of years ago. So PEI has a trucking sector council that they have there. They ran a fantastic program where they were funding truck drivers, but the program was so good where you as a aspiring truck driver would go to a company or a carrier saying, hey, I want to drive a truck. They would vet you. They would vet you and say, okay, this he or she is a good fit for our company. They would give you a letter, you would take it and go to the trucking sector council, and they had a couple of schools in this program. The school would have another chat with the driver and say, okay, you come on, you get trained for 8 weeks, you get trained, you answer your test. And while the training is on, the carrier gets feedback every week, right, as to how the driver is doing. At the end of 8 weeks, if the person had issues with, let's say, backing or shifting, then they would give them additional training in that. And at the end of those 8 weeks, you answered your test. If you passed your road test, you would do 4 weeks of internship at the carrier that was going to hire you. So you get the full package. So in my point of view, I think the carriers should be more involved in this process. If you want a good truck driver, if you want your insurance rate to drop, if you want to have a safe company, you need to have well-trained drivers. You can't just take somebody who's new and give him or her the keys of your truck and say, go ahead.
Wow.
So I think it should be both. The industry has to step forward also and say, these are going to be my employees down the road. You can't say the government is going to mandate something. Most likely it's not going to work.
Well, we have this problem when it comes to government regulation as it is now. You have one side of the industry that goes, we have too many damn regulations now, it's ridiculous. And then you have the others going, oh, well, they should just regulate that. They should just take care of that. And it's like, well, hang on, you can't have it both ways.
No.
You, as the industry representative, have to invest in your people and your organization as well.
And I think the market decides as to what is happening. You can do whatever you want. It's the dollar that counts either way. But then if you want a safer industry, you have to invest a little bit more.
Yeah.
I like the idea of, I wish more trucking companies would buy into the fact that they need a strong and very robust driver finishing program. Because I think the government has done an okay job with MELT. There's many improvements I could suggest, but it was a good starting point, my point. But trucking companies need to finish the training.
So I have this thought process where talking about MELT, right? So let's talk Ontario MELT. It's 103.5 hours of in-cab, in-yard, in-truck training.
Yep.
And you add 2 days of air brake training, which in total comes up to about 120 hours.
Right.
If you divide that into days, that becomes 15 days. If a person is training 8 hours a day.
Right.
Now, if you cut it down to 4 hours a day, that becomes a month-long worth of training.
Right.
So that is, would you want somebody driving a semi-trailer with 1 month's training once they get that piece of plastic saying that they are a truck driver down the road? If you break it down to a small amount, that's what it is.
Yeah.
It's
Sure.
a month's worth of training. That's it.
Right. Right.
Yeah, or it's roughly 2 weeks of full-time training.
Yeah, it is. It is.
My
That's
God,
it.
if we want truck driving to be recognized as a trade, how does that compare to a carpenter, to an electrician, to John's favorite subject, to a hairdresser?
Hairdresser. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I have another point of view where when people are being trained for, so four-wheelers, when people are being trained for their when they start at G1 here and they go to G2 and then they go to G.
Yep.
So it's a graded process. So why not the same for a truck driver?
Right.
And
Yes.
And if it's a four-wheeler driver, why aren't they thought about how long does it take a fully loaded semi to stop at highway speeds of 55 miles an hour? I would say get these students to a football field, make them walk it up and down and say, this is how long it takes. It should be part of the training. Then what are the blind spots in a truck? Because a truck driver is keeping space in the front of his truck because he needs that much space to stop, you don't dart in. You don't sit by his side for miles on end. He has to keep checking that he won't hit you, or you are on your phone and you might veer into him.
Yeah. Yeah.
These kind of things have to be taught to four-wheelers. That will help road safety as well.
Exactly. Be familiar with your surroundings better than what you are. I just completed my my M2 road test for my motorcycle license.
Right.
So I did my M1 and the training program 2 years ago, and I just completed the second phase of that. So now I am a fully fledged M licensed driver. So everybody watch out when I'm on the highway on my motorcycle. But it's so interesting because that's that training program, that first training program that we were trained in. It was a 2-day session, and it was interesting because they taught you nobody sees you. You are so small. You are on this motorcycle, on a highway. You're mixing with cars and trucks and whatnot, and it really helps you to think differently. And I've talked to more motorcycle drivers who are actually truck drivers as well. And their thought process in a truck is much different now with their motorcycle training.
Right.
So I wanted to go back to something real quick, Leo. When you were talking about the MELT program and the amount of time it takes to complete that process.
Right.
What are the hours as far as in cab only with behind the wheel driving up and down the road in that training program? How many hours are involved in that one? Do you know?
I'm not certain. I think it's about so the road is about half the time that you get. So it's in the school, it's in the yard, and then it's in the cab. So it's about a third each. I'm not too sure.
Okay. So when you talk about the training program being all of 2 weeks long total combined, if you went full at it every day, you'd be lucky to actually get a week's worth of training behind the wheel on all of that. It just kind of goes, I'm not sure that we can build the skill level that we need to be and the muscle memory on what we need to do and the better understanding of all these potential hazards that we've got on the road in a week's time.
And most schools will not do a full day worth of training. I think they cap it at 4 hours because people get tired.
Right. Yeah,
they will not go beyond that. Mostly an hour. It's mostly an hour or two. But sometimes it's a 2-hour period because there are other people. Like when we were training for pre-trip inspection, there would be 3 or 4 guys doing pre-trip. So you'd be there for a couple of hours, right? But I think also when you talk in terms of insurance and risk, backing is a big skill, right? And some schools will train drivers depending on the drive test center where they're planning to go. For example, if you're doing it in Hamilton, when I trained, there used to be only offset backing over there. So it's either from the left side or the right side. So schools would just train you for offset backing. That was it.
Yep.
No other backing. Now, once you go onto the road and you come to a truck stop and there are trucks over there, what are you going to do? It's difficult. Or if you go into a crowded dock and you have to do a blindside back, God help you.
Yeah.
So these kind of things, I think, only can be trained. People can learn from finishing programs where little more time is. And also, when you do city driving, you get a good feel of these kind of things because it's tight turns, tight streets. I know of some schools that spend a week with drivers just doing turn right all day long, like all for an hour or two each
Right.
time they come, which really helps because you have to think big when you think of a truck, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what advice would you have for a new student or a person who doesn't yet have their truck driver license? What should they look for, first of all, in a school, and then we can get on to what should they look for in an employer? But what would you say about a school? How would you pick a school?
Cheap is never the best, right? You get what you pay for.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. So true.
You have to be aware of what you're spending is an investment. It's not just a cost. It's an investment on your future. So you'll get some really cheap school that might not train you properly. You might get the odd school that trains you properly. A lot of people go to their comfort levels where they feel comfortable in terms of language, in terms of maybe culture. So they get dragged into that. I would say go to a school that is well established, do your homework, and most schools will let you go around and check stuff around. So if you see everything is being done above board, if they're not training in some parking lot and the truck is parked on the road, then you know that you're not going to get something what you paid for. So you have to be aware of what you're getting yourself into. And there are a lot of cases of guys who go to these small schools, they fail the test a couple of times, then they have to re-spend or retrain, spend more money, more time getting trained properly and then passing. So
I was going to say, and I imagine there's carriers out there that are aware of these cheap schools.
Yes.
I know as an employer, I'd be wanting to do my research to make sure that when a driver walks in and says, "Oh, I was trained at this school," and go, "Oh, gosh, it's going to take me a lot longer to get you where I need you to be because I know that school doesn't give you that much training."
So just to name a few carriers that actually have their own schools. So you've got Kriska has got their own school that runs through. You've got Challenger that has got a fantastic school. Musket Transport has got Chet, right?
Yep.
These are the big ones.
Yep.
And they hire those people. Most times they will try and hire the student that passed through their
Right.
program, which
Sure.
they know what they're in for. And a lot of other carriers I know have got like a short list of schools that they'll hire drivers from. Maybe the driver has, it in the end, it boils down to the road test that they will have. And then most times a pre-trip will tell you if the guy knows what he's talking about.
Yeah.
I remember. It was a client of mine when I was at the Guarantee, and it was a motor carrier. There were about 100 trucks, and a really great opportunity. They worked with a school specifically, and when they handpicked a student, they would get involved with that student early, like just as they were getting into the course, and they would say, "Okay, during your training course, if you do a half day, the rest of that day we want you to come to our yard. We'll pay you." And I want you to go around the yard and work with drivers doing pre-trip inspection with drivers. I want you to work with the mechanics to understand this. And if there's a local guy in the yard and he's going to do some shunt work, I want you to jump in with him and go, right? And they paid the driver for this. And then what was really cool, I'm getting a little far here, but what was really cool is when they successfully completed that training, they were then enrolled in a continuous finishing program, but they offered them, if you stayed with the company for a year, they would pay for half that training program for you. Plus, they
That's
paid you to come to their yard and learn
Right.
more.
Right. And what I found in PEI, there was no contract after those drivers were trained. So it was just a handshake. And people stayed on. People didn't leave.
Yep.
Now here in some other carriers, they actually penalize you. So they say you sign a 2-year contract. If you leave at the end of 1 year, you pay X amount. If you leave, that's how it works.
Right.
It's not a big sum, but it's still because they are training and they are investing in you. But most people do not leave because it's an investment and they realize that this company is safe, it's good. And if you can run the miles that you think will get you a good sum of cash by the end of the month, you will stay with them.
Yep.
Then and just to go on, there are other carriers that will use long haul drivers for local work.
Right.
When they are in these finishing programs. So what happens is their paycheck is really small. It leads to frustration. It leads to anger.
Right.
So there has to be a balance.
Yeah.
Well, most drivers have a family, and they got to bring home a paycheck. And
Right.
it has to be a reasonable paycheck, or else they're either going to switch employers or they leave the industry because they can't make enough money to feed the family.
Right.
I think it's pretty simple. Drivers need a fair wage. All drivers.
Yeah.
And when you talk about wages, some folks say drivers earn a good living. You have to understand that they are doing two jobs. They are working 16 hours a day, 14 to 16 hours a day. You will make quite a bit of money, even if you're earning a little over minimum wage, because you're earning times two. So these guys are working 14, 16 hours a day. They might not drive that long, but there are tasks assigned. So once, hours of service, you see people working 14 hours a day. Local drivers don't drive less than 11 to 12 hours a day. They work at least for that long. So, and then you talk about resets, which is 36 hours. So you expect somebody who has worked all these hours, 70-hour weeks, to be fresh and ready in a day and a half to go back on the road. And, rinse and repeat. These are human beings too. So sometimes when you talk about the driver and you say, oh, he's unsafe, he may be tired. He may be exhausted, but he keeps on going. So there are always two sides to that coin.
Yeah. Well, you'd mentioned about new drivers. Are you seeing, we know we're having an influx of immigration coming into Canada and whatnot. And I know I've seen a number of international students actually that are starting to get their license. What are you seeing in that aspect there, Leo?
So now that tap has kind of been turned off with the new rules in, which limit the work permits on these students. But prior to that, a lot of students used to come in. So they saw trucking as a path to immigration and staying on in Canada. You have to understand whether people want to drive or they need to drive, right?
Right.
So you get a lot of the students may not want to drive, but they need to drive to stay on in Canada.
Right.
So international students used to come for their program. They would get their G license and then move on to trucking. A lot of them did. They saw it as a path to move on. Now with the new immigration rules set in, and it's harder for them. Down the road, it could affect the pipeline of drivers, because if you look at the demographic of drivers right now, you and me know who's driving the truck right now. They're mostly, people who have immigrated here. And that's why, so I was at a truck show in Texas last week, and you could see families of people driving trucks and, grandkids, their granddad drove, their dad drove, their moms drove. That kind of stuff is not seen here in Canada anymore. From what I see, it's mostly immigrants who are doing this kind of work. Just to be fair, who wants to work 70 hours a week? You just come home, do your laundry, pack your food, go back out again.
Yep, exactly.
Where is your family time? People talk about work-life balance. It is hard, right? So when
Been there, done that.
Yeah. So international students were feeding the pipeline.
Yep.
In fact, I did a story about 3 or 4 months ago where trucking schools in the Brampton, Mississauga area we're talking about, they might lose a student.
Right. I read that story. Yeah.
Yeah. So we are still to see what's going to happen. And I think things will become clearer in a few months. But yes, that was the case up to a few months ago.
Yeah. The immigration in Canada it'll have an interesting effect on trucking. And I'm not sure exactly what that effect will be, but it'll be something to watch. And I'm sure we can count on Leo to keep us informed in Truck News.
Yeah.
But
Well, I know there's no doubt in what a lot of the clientele that I've seen and gone out to visit and whatnot during my risk evaluation visits. And, you really do have that mix of drivers who want to drive truck. They want to make it a career, whereas you have those that just need to drive truck. It's a quick means to make money, and it's a quick means in order to get my permanent residency card. And then it's those drivers that will take and go, got my card, I'm good to go, I'm out of here. And they'll go do something else. Now they'll go pursue, the career that they're looking for now that they can relax and go, okay, I'm in Canada now, I can move on and do something else. And I think the large volume of those drivers that need to drive don't want to drive.
Yeah. And that's what is happening. And I'm not sure how it's going to affect future of the industry as such, because we don't know, right?
no, I did.
Yeah.
Sorry, I've got so many things going on in my mind, but one follow-up question or a question or follow-up from the question that I asked you about picking a truck driving school.
Yes.
Just going back to that topic as a new person, would you pick because you said most trucking companies, or certainly I believe the elite trucking companies, have allegiances or stronger ties to truck driving schools. Should I pick the trucking company that I want to work for first and then ask them, hey, what schools would you recommend? Or do I pick the school first?
So that's a good point. So that would work as well. I don't think people see that far down the road. So people would look at the school first, right? And to be fair, during COVID, people were hiring left, right, and center. Now the hiring is on, but it's more picky. So as a new driver, you might not get the fleet that you want to drive for. You will have to make do. Also, depends where you're going to get in. The smaller companies will most likely make you run team. Team driving is a whole different ballgame. It carries sometimes, because if you're new and you've been told to go to, let's say, California, you're driving at night on roads you don't even know. There's always lack of sleep. There is the fear that your fellow driver, like if I'm experienced and I'm mentoring somebody new, I won't be able to sleep well in the truck. So it's difficult to find a job that you want right now. So some companies are still hiring, but not a lot. And it's difficult to find the jobs that you want. So you might have to just go with what you get.
Yeah. Right now, as we tape this interview, I believe that we are in a trucking recession at the moment. So you're right. Hiring is not like it was a year ago.
No, it is not. And so companies can pick and choose the cream of the crop. So if they were saying that, oh, I needed 1 year experience, now they'll say, I need 2 years of experience. Or they could say, oh, have you run these routes? I can only offer you 2-week runs. I can't offer you something that you'll come home every week. And you have to accept.
Right.
That kind of stuff.
Here's what I got. This is what you got to pick from. I do believe, and I like the way you answered that question, but I do believe that as a new driver, putting yourself out there and go introduce yourself to a trucking company that interests you, right? And then talking with them, there's opportunities for succession planning. So if you have a great view with that motor carrier, even before you've gotten your license, and they steer you on the right path to say, well, here's the school that we deal with. And if you say, well, can I stay in communication that while I'm doing my course, maybe there's opportunity I could learn, I could come over and do some, extra hours or something like that. There might be opportunity that these folks are going to see how you progress and go, you know what? I got 2 guys who are going to retire in the next year and I need to replace them. And here's somebody that's really got forward thinking, wants to make a career out of this. There's somebody I'd rather take on than the guy that comes in and he's got a year experience and I, haven't even built.
No, that thought is really good. If somebody had told me that, it would have really helped. So that point is very valid.
Yeah. Well, and I think it shows you're now the driver that wants to drive truck, not needs to drive truck.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I think that is probably a great place to wrap this one up. There's one subject we didn't get to. So, Leo, you're going to have to come back on the Trucking Risk and Insurance podcast, because I do want to pick your brain about truck driver mentoring or finishing programs. So we'll have to have you back for that episode. But Leo,
thank you.
Last word to you. Your contact info will be down below, but what word of advice would you have for a new person picking a school or picking a trucking company?
I would say first, you would want to drive a truck, not need to drive a truck. Second, you pick the school that trains you well. You go to the school, check things out. And as John said, you could be even one step ahead. Go to a carrier and say, what do I need to do? Which schools do I need to go to? And work your way from there. You have to have a plan in mind. And you have to also be willing to, you have to know that this job is not for all. It's a tough life. It's dangerous. You have to stay away from home and your family. So put all those thoughts in your mind first, prepare, and then choose what you're going to do.
Beautiful. Leo from TruckNews and Newcom, thanks so much for coming on the show. And thanks, Leo. Appreciate your time and your insights on truck driver training and trucking companies. All right, that's it for this week. John and I thank you so much. Don't forget to leave us a comment. Tell us what you thought about Leo's interview. Leo's info is in the show notes down below. And of course, John and I appreciate your time. So don't forget to like and subscribe to the Trucking Risk and Insurance Podcast. That's it. See you next week.